Our NFL reporter Ryan Dunleavy has reported that the Giants met with Matthew Stafford's reps Tuesday at the NFL Combine, where Ryan's on now, and we have our Giants beat writer for the Post as well, Paul Schwartz, for a Blue Rush Combine edition because Joe Schoen just might take a swing at Matthew Stafford. Gentlemen, how's Indy? We'll start with you, Paul. How's it going on out there?
Indy's good. If they want to keep the NFL scouting combine in Indianapolis forever, it's fine with me. You can walk everywhere. There's good restaurants. I know my way around the highways and byways and walking through the corridors and things. Good hotels. It's fine with me. And this is really a good event. You know, you get the GM. A lot of teams get their coach. We don't get Brian Dable with the Giants. You get all the prospects. You have a lot of information. GMs, coaches, agents, media. It's a lot gets done here. It really does. And sometimes deals get done here.
Ryan, before we kick off this Blue Rush, Indy, what's you learning anything new? Like, what's that been like for you out there as well?
Yeah, man, it's all quarterback driven out in Indianapolis. It's a dominoes thing, Brandon. It's like if Aaron Rodgers is available, then he goes where? If Matthew Stafford is available, then Aaron Rodgers take his spot? If Russell Wilson's available, does he go here? If Kirk Cousins is available, does he go here? It's all about figuring out the dominoes in the quarterback game, and everything falls from there.
All right, well, that big quarterback or the big quarterback news coming out of Indianapolis is all about Matthew Stafford. Paul, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to ask this question to you as bluntly as possible. Is Matthew Stafford going to be the Giants' QB1 come opening day?
If you don't hold me to this answer, I will say yes. Okay. It's the most, I'm not saying it's the most logical or the easiest thing to do. They are desperate for a quarterback, period. Right. And not just any quarterback. They're desperate for a starting quarterback who can step behind center in week one and not win 3 games or 4 or 5 to become a pretty good team. They feel this is a pretty good team that has no quarterback. And I feel increasingly that Joe Schoen looks at the draft and says, I can't count on the draft to give me that quarterback. There might only be one that we think is a franchise quarterback, and that's Cam Ward. And the odds of him being there at number 3 are not high. Now you say you can trade up to 1 and get him. Well, only if the Titans don't want Cam Ward, and they might not. You might have to go all the way to 1 to get him. So I don't think Joe Schoen could just sit there and say, you know what, there's a couple of quarterbacks in this draft. We like them. We'll sit at 3. We'll get one of them. I don't think he feels that's what you can do. If you look at that, Ryan has been all over this quarterback free agency market. It's not great. Is Justin Fields going to become available? Is Russell Wilson going to become available? Those are both upgrades from what the Giants had last year, but are they good enough? Matthew Stafford would be the best quarterback by far the Giants have had since Eli Manning in his prime, and Matthew Stafford in his prime was better than Eli Manning. Is he gettable? If the Rams are going to trade him, I still think the smartest thing for the Rams to do is to keep him. But where there's smoke, there's fire, from what I've heard. And so if he's available, I think the Giants will do everything they can to get him because that gives them a good quarterback they feel they can win with.
Ryan, we've talked about the tier 2 quarterbacks outside of Matthew Stafford. A lot of Giants fans feel like going for a 37-year-old quarterback is that Hail Mary that Joe Schoen kind of said that he wasn't going to go for. But like Paul said, in terms of the dating life, there ain't much out there in these streets when it comes to the next tier of quarterbacks. So do you think it makes sense to go after a 37-year-old Matt Stafford with the other quarterbacks that are available?
Well, I asked Joe Schoen yesterday when we were all talking to him. You keep saying veteran quarterback, Joe. What's the difference? There's a difference to me between a 28-year-old veteran quarterback, a la Sam Darnold, and a 37-year-old quarterback, Matt Stafford. And to me, a 37-year-old quarterback doesn't make a lot of sense for where the Giants roster is right now. But Joe Schoen said best quarterback who can help us win games in 2025, which shows you where his mindset is. It's in the right now. That is, like Paul said, that is Matthew Stafford. When I'm around here at bars and restaurants and hallways talking to people around the league, the feeling seems to be cooler heads will prevail. And this isn't Giants info. This is around the league talking to people. The feeling seems to be that cooler heads will prevail. The Stafford will end up staying with the Rams. He might get a raise, not as much as he wants, not as much as a team like the Giants might pay him if they could get him, but some sort of raise from the Rams, and then he'll realize, hey, this is where I could win another Super Bowl with this team. Like, it makes a lot of sense for the Giants to want Stafford. No one I've talked to can really figure out why Stafford would want to join a 3-win team, or why the Rams would want to give up their quarterback when they were the team that gave the Eagles the toughest game in the playoffs.
Paul, Joe Schoen, again, he's mentioned that not throwing the Hail Mary, but swinging, taking the swing at these quarterbacks. When you look at his track record, he hasn't drafted a quarterback, and when you think of free agency, he's only brought in Tyrod Taylor and Drew Lock. Do you feel like there's that pressure to bring in a Matt Stafford because he is the big fish of this year's or could possibly be the big fish in this year's like free agency or offseason?
I mean, there might not be any general manager in the league under more pressure to produce a quarterback than Joe Schoen. You know, it's pretty unprecedented to go from 9 wins to 6 wins to 3 wins and still have a job, right? And so Joe Schoen knows this, and I think you know, his media briefing on Tuesday, I think was good. I think he was trying to be helpful. He was trying to you know, not show that he's weak or he's desperate, but they are desperate. I mean, you don't have to make a desperate move, but they're desperate. They need 2 quarterbacks. I mean, you know, Tommy DeVito is the only one on under contract, and you know, he very likely won't be on the team. So they need a starter and they need a backup. You know what I mean? The main thing is they need a starter. So yeah, I mean, there's tremendous pressure on him, and he knows it. And the problem is, when Ryan was talking earlier about you know, there's a domino effect. If he goes here, he goes here. There's not enough slots. There's not enough dominoes for the slots. You know what I mean? There are 8 open slots and 5 dominoes. You know what I mean? And so, you know, is that right? Or is it the other way around? There are more slots. There are more. Yes, that's right. I mean, there's just not enough quarterbacks to fill, I don't know, domino slots. There are not enough quarterbacks to fill the needs of these teams. So it's not like you can orderly say, he goes here, he goes here, he goes here. It's like, okay, I'll give you another one. It's like musical chairs, right? At some point, someone's going to be left standing up with no chair. Yeah. At some point, there's going to be a couple of teams standing up with no quarterback. The Giants cannot be that team, or else it's going to bode very poorly for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll.
Hey, you're a pure vet right there, Paul. I love the way you redeemed yourself with the musical chairs.
I'm still not sure. Now, let me think. It's more, there's not enough dominoes. There are more slots, right, than there are dominoes. That's correct, I think, right? It's a good thing. It's a good thing this is just the first take, and we can do this all again, and I can clean that up, right? That's the way we do things, right?
And luckily, our Blue Rush audience loves us to where we want to get you guys to write in the comments, is it the dominoes or the slots, or the slots or the dominoes? But either way, Ryan, this team has a lot of spots, not slots, that they need to fill. Does it make sense to trade for whatever you may have to trade for to get a Matthew Stafford, and then take on whatever contract you're going to have to either take on and restructure? Does it make sense for a Joe Schoen to go after him when you still need a cornerback 1, a receiver outside of Malik Neighbors, interior lineman, interior D lineman? A 3-13 team has a lot of holes to fill. But Joe Schoen also said that he thinks they're a quarterback away. Does it make sense to go after Matthew Stafford?
There's 2 ways of team building that the smartest people in the NFL I talk to believe in. One is you get your quarterback, he makes everybody better. That's what Matthew Stafford would do. The other one is you make your team better, then you get a young quarterback on a rookie team-friendly contract, and all of a sudden you have really good players around him with high salaries, and that's how you elevate it. So to me, I would do the second, right? Now, Joe Schoen has a different timeline. He's under, as Paul said, he's on the hot seat. So, like, I understand the theory of let's get Matthew Stafford, let's win as many games. But no, to me, to answer your question, Brandon, like, if you asked me what you asked Paul earlier, is Matthew Stafford the Giants' week 1 quarterback? I would say no, because I think the Rams are going to end up keeping him, and I think the Giants' best path is Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. What Paul would tell you, I think, is, well, they're not guaranteed to get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. They're the 3rd pick. They could go 1-2. I think the Giants probably end up trading up slightly to make sure they can get one of those 2 quarterbacks, maybe have their choice of both. And I think they should spend pretty freely in free agency because, like you said, spend on a cornerback. They're going to get overpaid, but go get a DJ Reed or a Paulson Adebo or somebody like that. Spend on a defensive tackle who can take some pressure off of Dexter Lawrence. Spend on a wide receiver too. I think the Giants should spend elsewhere and make it a more comfortable environment for a rookie quarterback to have some success. Get a better offensive line and let the young quarterback grow around a better team.
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning towards that idea, Ryan. Bringing in more. I mean, depth in places. You need more bodies, more pieces, more chess pieces to really get this team out of the rut or whatever it is they've been stuck in for the last couple of years. Final thought here, Paul. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Who are the 2 Giants quarterbacks you feel could be on the roster next year in terms of their QB1 and QB2? And then your final thoughts going into on-field activities there at the Combine.
Well, you put me on the spot here. I don't have enough slots for these spots. I would say, look, I mean, Stafford. I agree with Ryan that it makes no sense for the Rams to get rid of him, and I certainly think something could be worked out. But I'm not all in on Stafford. Certainly, I don't think it makes a hell of a lot of sense either to bring in a 37-year-old quarterback, even though he has instant credibility and he's a really good player. Slightly on the downside. But I would say Stafford, if I'm going to go with Stafford, and then they would take a quarterback. The kid from Louisville, maybe, Tyler Shaw, something like that. Jackson Dart, I think, will go high. I don't think the Giants are going to then trade up and get something like that. I mean, if you get a Stafford and a Travis Hunter, right? You have your cornerback, Stafford and an Abdul Carter, and then you bring in a quarterback. They have the first pick in the second round. Maybe they like somebody a lot who can develop behind Stafford. I don't think you get Stafford and then you say, okay, we're done with the quarterback. That makes no sense because it's a win now quarterback with a team that's not ready to win now. So if you can get Stafford for a year or two and then you draft a guy, and heaven forbid, years ago you would draft a guy and he could sit. You know what I mean? You can sit, and if you draft a guy in the second or third round, you don't have that pressure to play him right away. He's not the third pick in the draft. I think that's what you do. So I think you get Stafford and you get a younger quarterback who you can groom, which doesn't have to play right away, and that's the way you go. And oh, by the way, along the way, you've got a defensive stud in Hunter or Carter that every team, all 32 teams in the league, would want either of those 2 guys. So you've made your defense instantly better.
All right, what saith you, Ryan?
I would say I think that's a very strong possibility of what the Giants will do.
Yep.
I'll stick with what I said I think is best for them. If I had to guess, I'd say Shedeur Sanders. And I came here thinking Shedeur Sanders and Justin Fields. It seems like every team wants a piece of Justin Fields, including the Steelers re-signing him. It's funny how you become you sit on the bench a little bit and people forget your flaws as a starter. This happened with Mitch Trubisky a couple years ago. Then you go back to starting and people are like, oh yeah, that's why he was a backup. But it seems like everybody wants a piece of Fields. So if I had to guess right now, I would say Shedeur Sanders and what could have been the Giants quarterback situation last year, Russell Wilson. That's what I said, because I think they need somebody better than a Jacoby Brissett or a Jameis Winston. So if I had to guess, I'd say Russell Wilson and Shedeur Sanders right now would be my Giants 2 quarterbacks week 1.
All right, well, the quarterback news is going to be the news that keeps giving. Thank you guys for watching this mini Combine episode of Blue Rush. And thank you, Ryan and Paul, for making yourselves available.
You got it.
Thanks, Brandon.